Well, the Celtics are starting this season a lot better than they did last year. Last year, I know it took a couple months for them to really get going. And then we know the turbulent offseason they had with the Ime Udoka situation that's still ever developing behind the scenes. However, as of this point, they've went on a winning streak. They're first place in the Eastern Conference as of today. We're recording this on Monday, just getting a big win against the OKC Thunder. Obviously, they don't even have Robert Williams back, and they're able to do what they're doing to this point early in the season. Kyle, what do you make of the Celtics and how they performed, especially on the streak?
Well, the Boston Celtics are the same team that I remember them from last year's playoffs. I mean, they're a team that's Tatum and Brown are going to give you 20. Marcus Smart might give you a 22 every now and again. They're going to play some very strong defense, and they're going to win these games against teams that, for the most part, are lesser. I mean, they beat, like we were talking about, they beat the Nuggets, they beat the Grizzlies. Like, they've had some good wins in there, but it's like 6 points against the Pistons, 4 points against the Thunder, 3 points against the Pistons, 3 points against the Bulls, which is fine. Like, it's better to win those games than lose them like the Warriors are doing, but it's still really interesting to watch Boston play because they're kind of like a well-refined machine. Like, you can take out the leadership at the top and just kind of plug it in, and the machine keeps rolling for Boston. And like you said, even without Robert Williams, they've been pretty solid defensively this year. I believe still a top 5 defensive team in the league. I'd have to double check that. Last week, they were a top 5 defensive team in the league, but that might have changed in the time since. So it's been very solid, well-oiled machine. We've seen years of evidence that suggests Boston is one of the 4 best teams in the East, and they're continuing to show it this year.
I think one of the biggest differences on this year's team is that the bench has really started off well for them. Obviously, the addition of Malcolm Brogden was a needed move for this Boston Celtics roster to make. He's given them some great depth at the guard position. He's been missed the last couple games. He's missed the last couple with a hamstring, and his presence not being out there, you do feel it. Obviously, you mentioned how close it was in this OKC game. You mentioned how close it was in the Pistons game. I feel as though if Brogdon was in there giving his contributions off the bench, that may have provided a little bit of a difference in that game. Derek White has played a little bit better this year. His shooting form is still inconsistent, but I hope that we see some better results from Derek White as this goes on. We know that he was more of a defensive type guard when he was with the San Antonio Spurs, and he would give you the occasional 3-point shooting, not great 3-point shooting, but occasional 3-point shooting. If he gives you that, then Derek White's giving you exactly what you want. Grant was a 40% 3-point shooter last year. Hopefully Grant can continue to be that for you, especially as one of your bigger guys that you like to have out there when you're playing bully ball on the court. And they found some nice developments this year with a Sam Hauser, like one of those underrated type finds. He's basically giving them what Peyton Pritchard was in 3-point shooting, except he's bigger. You would have liked Danilo Gallinari to be out there, but you would have took a step back defensively with Gallinari. Tit for tat, you lose a little bit of that, but you do gain a little bit more size, a little bit more defensive Rossi. And so the Celtics have really built up something sustainable in the guys that they have on the roster. And it starts at the top. Jayson Tatum, Jaylen Brown, both averaging, I want to say 25 and 6 at this point. So 25 and 6 from those two guys. You're going to win a lot of ball games if those guys are giving you those level of performances. I think it was just a week ago that both of them put up over 30 in a game. I want to say that was the Denver Nuggets win. In fact, you go against an MVP caliber guy like Jokic, you have to have your stars perform. And it's impressive that Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown are both performing for them, cutting down on the turnovers, not making the dumb plays. That was the stuff that cost them in the finals last year. That's the only reason that they even went to 7 games with Miami or went to 7 games with Milwaukee without Chris Middleton. If they don't have any of that, if they clean that mess up and they stop going to isolation ball, which is so often their fallback, then they can have a run to title 18.
I mean, they're right at the top there. And by the way, to clean up something you said, Jayson Tatum, 32 points, 7 rebounds, and 4 assists to start the season, which is short sample size, but puts him in the top 7 of the MVP race at this point. And Grant Williams right now is shooting 20 for 40 from 3-point range. That is a 50% clip under an incredibly small sample size, no doubt, but 20 for 40 so far to start the season from Grant Williams will help that number 1 offensive rating they have in the league.
Well, you go back to last year's playoffs, and he has the game 7 against Milwaukee, where he just can't miss from 3-point range. And then you go into the Miami Heat series and the Golden State series, and Grant is practically unplayable. So to hear that he's at a 50% clip and hear that the 3-point shooting has come along to that extent is something that you just hope that he doesn't lose sight of. I mean, corner three, if he could just be a PJ Tucker for us and consistently hit from that range, I'm okay with that, because Grant, I like when Grant's playing well. There's times in which Grant is unplayable, and it's frustrating when that happens. Again, we'll see how these minutes adjust too whenever you get like a Robert Williams back in there. I'm sure they don't want to overspend Al Horford. Al Horford now, age 38 at this point. Al's in his golden years, but still giving them good minutes. I mean, I want to say he put up 20 tonight or 20 a couple nights ago. Al Horford still has that former first round pick level performance in him, and showing that he's one of the truly ageless stars in the league.
Well, star is a little generous, but yes, I agree with you. He's a former star, but he played like a star a few times in the playoffs last year, like that game 4 against Milwaukee that I still don't understand how he outscored the entire Bucks team.
Internationally. Al Horford's name.
Well, you said Al's golden hour, which I thought was funny that you made an Al Golden pun to the old Miami Hurricanes fired head coach, which I thought was hilarious. But I thought they should move Al Horford to the bench last year. So seeing Grant Williams be kind of in that like stretch 4 who shoots a lot of corner threes. He's not necessarily a shot creator, but a shot like taker, where they just like Tatum is doing ISO and then hits it to Williams and Williams shoots. Probably better to have him in that spot than Horford. So I guess in that situation, of course, Robert Williams is going to start at the 5. So like you could make a case either way for Horford or Williams.
I think particularly here in the regular season, if you want to put it on a guy with younger legs, fresher legs in Grant, than someone like Al, because you want Al playing his best ball in May, in June. I will say Al did ramp up in the latter part of the season last year, but part of that was he had that year off with OKC the previous year. That I think that went a long way for Al's health. Obviously, off of a finals run, a lot of minutes on those legs. I think it will be good to give him some rest throughout the course of the season, some veteran days, just to kind of make sure that this team is running at full steam by the time you do hit playoff mode. Obviously, don't take your foot off the gas too much, because, you still have to defend who gets home court advantage with Milwaukee. I think home court is going to actually be pivotal in those environments and those matchups when we talk about the top of the Eastern Conference. Right now, you still see Atlanta circling there between the top 2 teams. We'll see if they fade off. We know that the Cavaliers, they've beaten the Celtics team twice, so I'm not going to write off the Cavs. Darius Garland just put up 50 the other night. Tells you the type of firepower they have between him and Donovan Mitchell.
And also,
Celtics have more competition this year.
One thing to also note is that the Williams thing is a new switch that Boston's made since they've gone on this win streak. It was originally Derek White at the 2 and Jayson Tatum at the 4 to start the season. So like that's another option they could go to. This is just kind of a recent switch they've done with the Grant Williams thing. So, I mean, it's there. Like the different options are available for Boston. It's just, what do you do when Robert Williams comes back? That's like the macro level thing that's interesting. On a short-term level, like they have the number 1 offense in the NBA. And that's something that you can definitely hang your hat on, because, last year's team was, they can score enough points along with the best defensive team in the NBA. And this year's kind of like, they have a good defensive team. Like I said, they were top 5 last week. Right now they're ranked 11th, but again, super duper small sample sizes. But having a top ranked offense is certainly an improvement from last year's Celtics team.
All right, guys. Well, let us know what you think about the Celtics in the early goings here. Do you think they are currently the favorite in the Eastern Conference? If they are, we'd like to hear your thoughts. Leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, follow us on all our social medias. From Juju, from Kyle, stay safe, happy, and healthy. We'll see you on the next one.